Hey guys, it's Tiyah, and today I'm going to be talking to you about self-sabotage. I've been wanting to talk about this for a while now, but it's been taking me some time to digest what it is and as well to figure out how it presented itself in my day-to-day life and in general. I'm excited to talk about this. If you're new here, welcome and subscribe. I post content like this every other week, so you can go ahead and click the notification bell while you're at it. I'm not going to take too long. Like I said, I'm excited to talk about this. Let's go. Self-sabotage is a place that I think most of us can say that we've experienced. And if you're here, it's probably more than just an experience. To be honest, self-sabotage is still a struggle for me. I had to first accept that I was inhibiting my own progress in the first place. Like, what sane person is doing that to themselves? I was beating myself up over it for a while because I couldn't understand why I was choosing sometimes to even knowingly do this, and or what it was that was causing this inner conflict within me when it came to, doing something new or introducing myself to a new way of doing things. I was looking into the wrong but right places, I would say. For me, it just took a bit of my own experience with it, and for the knowledge that I was getting in about it to just come into just one ball and a conclusion. And one thing that I had to accept was, in order to acknowledge that there is a problem, I have to first accept the experience. And that was a big thing for me. The stubbornness, I'm less stubborn now than I was then, but it doesn't negate the fact that the less you put off the work that needs to be done within you, the less yourself you're going to feel, and the more things you're going to pile up on the already suffocated issue. So I want to talk about overcoming self-sabotage. Even though, we may understand what it is, I still want to talk about the steps to take because they aren't as intuitive as you would think. Overcoming self-sabotage is not about trying to figure out how to override your impulses. It's first determining why these impulses exist in the first place. Early on in our life, our self-concept is developed, and it develops around the way we're being treated and the emotions we experience from that in our environment. These emotions, however, can be a little murky because in our earlier years, the right brain is predominantly processing these experiences and emotions. And we know we have these experiences, we just can't express them in a way you will be able to put into words, because the left hemisphere of our brain is where most of the linguistic development takes place, and that doesn't usually happen until a little later in life, and by that time the building blocks have already been made. So the point is that the foundation of our self-concept it begins there, where we are interpreting unconsciously who we are. And like I mentioned earlier, these building blocks don't go away. They get buried and built on top of by other emotional experiences and more mature ways of interpreting those experiences. So when you have big ongoing issues in your life that have simple solutions, but that seem difficult to stick with or solve, in most cases, you're probably self-sabotaging. And using your brain's confirmation bias to convince yourself that it's not that big of a deal and you can do it if you really wanted to. And I'm sure we've all been there. I've been there so many times. Oh my gosh. But if we overturn the iceberg here and look at it, we'll realize that we don't have big problems, but big attachments. And this comes from not meeting our innermost needs. When we don't meet our innermost needs consciously, self-sabotage can be used as a strategy to reduce or manage these stressful situations or difficult emotions. So what I'm saying is self-sabotage is a coping mechanism, and it's a temporary solution. It's only a temporary solution used to push away the real problem or the real attachment. When it comes to attachments, People experience a natural resistance to what is unknown, ultimately because it represents a loss of control. Even if we know that on the opposite side, what's there is potentially good or healthy for us. Brianna Wyeth, in her book, The Mountain is You, she says, everyone has a capacity for which they allow themselves to feel good. Everyone has a limit. And I forget its name, but someone calls it a upper limit. And essentially that means even if you're happy and you're trying to be happier, you're not going to you're not going to surpass that upper limit. Somehow you're going to find some way to bring yourself back down to a point where you're most comfortable. Your precondition for what is familiar won't alter or change until the familiar is familiar. Otherwise, you'll continue to bring yourself back to where you're most comfortable. But essentially, it comes down to the point where you begin to be uncomfortable with being comfortable. And this can be a breaking point for people. Sometimes it is. Sometimes it takes for someone to want to change, for them to come to a point in their life where they never want to be again, for them to want to know really what's going on. That's why when it comes to self-sabotage, identifying the behaviors that inhibit you and finding the root cause can help you dig up the unconscious attachments that are arresting you to this unhealthy behavior, or quote unquote unhealthy. But people appear irrational, hard to predict, because we don't understand what they're attached to, what their behavior is being committed to. We often don't understand ourselves. Our own behavior at times can be alien. Our intentions can be muddled. And what I'm getting at here is it isn't expected for the miraculous to happen. And it shouldn't be. People don't just change because we're programmed to seek what we know. You're going to have to become conscious of negative and false beliefs and start shifting to a mindset that serves you. Or self-sabotage is pretty much inevitable to continue. I talked a lot about this in my last video and on identifying the premise behind our behavior. If you haven't watched my recent video, you can go check it out. It's on finding your purpose, and it'll help you understand what I mean when I say shift to a mindset that serves you. When we have something to create or build, the unfamiliarity of that uncharted space can be intimidating. And we can find ourselves facing resistance, believe it or not. We're not programmed to be happy. We're programmed to be comfortable. We're wired to be comfortable. People don't like program, but we're wired to be comfortable. And anything unfamiliar is going to be faced with some resistance until we're familiar with it. But moving on in the face of resistance, even though it can work sometimes, when it comes to self-sabotage, however, that can trigger and intensify the internal conflict that's already causing, you to feel fear, guilt, anger, or worry, because resistance can show up as all of these things. But I think Brianna Wyeth, she says in her book, you have to identify the unconscious beliefs that are preventing you from showing up. I keep mentioning this book. I've been reading it recently. If you have the time, you should check it out. It's a cool read. So what I'm trying to say is when you understand the premise behind your commitments, you learn a better way. I think there's a ghost. You learn a better way to correctly meet your needs. The emotions that we experience do have importance. They're still communicating something to you. And if we ask ourselves why, just ask. And just being okay with the experience before you change how you feel or how you want to respond to it, we can start to validate what's factual with logic and invalidate anything that isn't. And I think that's best. When you acclimate the balance of emotion and reason, you can begin to determine your own intentions and beliefs separate from what your exterior or your persona is communicating to you, because the persona is only communicating that you are harmless, and to everyone else that you are. It is a face, and it's important to look underneath it. It's not meant to just be everything that you are. But I also want to say the bondage of self-sabotage can only be can only continue when we use random keys to unlock parts of ourselves or our own potential. It is okay for a while, but it doesn't directly concentrate on the source, especially when you're facing resistance. It's not supposed to be easy, and running in the dark is frustrating. And that's why I think, people who are struggling with self-sabotage and in general, just getting to know themselves, try to figure out why. Just sit with yourself, understanding why, and not coming at yourself with invalid logic or biases and beliefs on top of the experience that you're already having. Later, we'll talk more about what trusting yourself looks like as well. And if you want to know more about the terms I use today, you can check out my recent video where I talk about understanding your sense of self and finding your purpose. I hope you guys enjoyed this, and I would really enjoy hearing your thoughts. And if you have any questions, you can ask. Of course, I'll do my best to answer. And I hope you enjoyed. And as always, I will see you soon.